Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Standing Room Only podcast. It is episode number 34, week number 34, however you want to look at it. As always, I'm here with Healy, myself, Goose. I just want to thank everybody for all of the downloads, all of the likes, all of the views, whatever it may be. If it's your first time joining us, welcome in. You are in for a treat, especially today, especially moving forward. We have sports coming back. If you are already following us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, thank you. If not, go ahead, follow us, listen, like, and most importantly, download. That is how we see our viewers, is based on the downloads. So if you can, we would really appreciate that. We are on YouTube as well, the Standing Room Only podcast. And then we have our social media. We're on Instagram. We are on Twitter, the SR Only Pod.
Yep.
SRO Pod. And then you can also follow our personal accounts. I am iGoose 4 O's, and then we have Healy as well.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at the Healy6. You want to follow my YouTube and Twitch channel as well? It's at Healy6. You can find me in pretty much any social media site. We're back though.
And then yes, we are back. And I just want to say I butchered our social media account. It is SR Only Pod. I just had the biggest brain fart. So it is SR Only Pod. Make sure you go ahead and follow us on social media. We love to stay interactive. And as Healy said, we're back. Another week of news, sports. Big, I would say big news.
We have Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, Mr. Comeback himself. Mr. I should be a two-time Super Bowl champ, but unfortunately things didn't work out 2 seasons ago. Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year extension for what could be up to 500 mil, just over 500 mil.
Yeah.
With all incentives, and if he plays to the terms of the contract.
Yep. Yeah.
One of the, as far as we know, this is the richest contract in all Major League history to be signed. So not necessarily the most money made, but the biggest to be signed. Obviously, we've seen in the MLB, we've seen Harper, we've seen Machado's, we've seen Giancarlo Stanton's, we've seen big $300 million contracts, almost $400 million. But we've never seen $500 million, especially an NFL player. We've seen some big contracts, but so far this trumps every contract out there. He is the highest paid player in all of Major League sports. He's only 24 years old. He's started 3 years in the league. Does he deserve it, Healy?
Yeah. Well, in a football terms perspective, I think 10 years is a long time. Like baseball players, you can guarantee production. You can guarantee that these guys will be here in 10 years. Football's a little bit of a different story. There's injuries that happen. Some guys just aren't as good as they are. Previous years, they fall off very quickly. Patrick Mahomes, though, he's only 24. It's not like he's 31 signing a 10-year contract. This dude is as old as I am, pretty much. 24 years old. At the end of the contract, he's 34 years old, which for a quarterback, you're still putting up numbers at 34. So I think I said no, but like after just describing what like the age and everything to go along with it and how awesome he's been the past few years. Yeah, 10 years, all the money they gave him, they've locked him up for good pretty much his whole career. And looking at his contract, who knows? Maybe in 10 years, he's one of like the not underpaid quarterbacks in the league. I don't know how much the salaries are going to go up with. As we see, like every couple years, quarterbacks are the highest paid quarterback ever. And we'll just have to see. He's like Mike Trout in the NFL. Mike Trout just got hit with that massive deal. And the money that you're paying for him should pan out. You would think.
I completely agree. He just won a Super Bowl. The talent is second to none. To be fair, I said it already, and I think everybody in the world agrees that the Chiefs should have been the team in the Super Bowl 2 years ago against the Rams. It was just a bad offsides play that Tom Brady and the Patriots took advantage of. They ended up winning, right, in the AFC Championship game. As you mentioned, it is a lot of money, but the way the contract works, the structure, it's like 160 or 140 guaranteed.
Yeah,
So if he gets
141
hurt,
million.
yeah. So if he gets hurt, sure, he'll get 141 million. No love lost on either side there. That's a huge payout. And for the Chiefs, they're not. It's I feel like 140 million teams can be okay with if they end up. It's like a risk, right?
Yeah.
But what they're calling it, this contract is a team friendly contract, if I'm not mistaken, based on how it's getting paid out. Um, so the way it's gonna work, it's slowly working its way up. His base salary is gonna work its way up. He's only making 2.5 million base salary up until 2026. It's the roster bonus that he's getting. That's like in the 30 millions up until like 2027. Then we're talking 49 million. I think that's where they're expecting him to peak. Um,
Yeah.
so I think with that, there's there's like additions, there's bonuses, there's incentives. So there's like a $2.5 million that he can earn by winning the AFC championship game and earning like league MVP. So there's accolades that he's going to get paid for, and that all accumulates to this $500 million contract. Now, granted, is it gonna happen? Is he gonna fulfill the 500? He might. I don't know who's a better quarterback besides Lamar Jackson. And that's even debatable, you know? So I think it's a well-deserved contract. Nothing is guaranteed. A lot of it's bonus money. Uh I see them winning at least another, if not two more Super Bowls. We don't know how long Andy Reid will be there. As long as Andy Reid's there and they have some speed, he can toss the ball 60 yards on any given Sunday. And I think it's well deserved. We're seeing athletes, like you mentioned, Mike Trout get huge contracts in the MLB. And in a couple years, who knows who else is going to get a big contract as the cap space seems to go up every few years. So and one of the best parts with this whole contract is if the Chiefs ever need to free up some cap space to make a roster move, they can convert a portion of his yearly salary to a signing bonus, and that actually will create needed cap space. So that's why they call it a team-friendly contract. So even though it is a team-friendly contract, obviously Mahomes is going to be half a billionaire,
Yeah.
and he's only going to be 34 when the contract's done. Like you said, 34. Rodgers at 34, Brady at 34. So many great quarterbacks are still in their prime at 34. He can end up with another 5-year major contract,
Yeah.
and his contract alone could make him a billionaire.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that's
yeah.
nuts. Well, that's not including, but you got to think about his incentives, and you got to think about endorsement deals. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. But I'm super happy for Mahomes and for that Chiefs organization. They locked him in for a long time, and they're fun to watch. They are fun to watch. Obviously you're a Bears fan. You have the Khalil Mack shirt on. I'm a cheesehead. I'm not wearing any Packers gear right now, but besides loving to watch my team, and I'm sure besides you loving to watch your team,
Yep.
Pat Mahomes is right there to him and Lamar Jackson are the two best to like. That's every Sunday I wake up and I'm like, I need to watch these guys.
Yeah.
And you know what? Those guys deserve money. Lamar Jackson's next.
Yeah. Last year, I went to the Bears Chiefs game, and I was super excited to see them play the Chiefs, and it was so cool to see Mahomes in person. And it was insane how against that Bears defense, which is normally pretty good, he was just scoring with ease, and obviously the Bears offense couldn't keep up. That's how the Chiefs win. They're so efficient on the offense that if you can't put up points to match, you're going to fall behind very quickly. And
I've always said it. You can keep going. I'm sorry.
um, you go. I lost my thought. I'll
I
get it
was
back.
no, I was just gonna follow up with that. Was yeah, their offense. How do you beat a good defense? You just fire on all cylinders on offense. Golden State Warriors. Granted, they did have a solid defense to them,
Hmm.
but a great offense could beat a good
They
defense.
revolutionized how the NBA's played today.
Exactly. The three is worth more than the two. And it's not like the Chiefs are a bad team, but they put Mahomes in situations where he was down 24-0 against Houston.
Did you see that
DeAndre
DeAndre
Hopkins,
Hopkins
yeah,
tweet?
he said it himself. He's like he has 24 reasons why he deserves that. And now obviously Hopkins is with Arizona now,
Hmm.
but I'm sure he goes to sleep thinking about, wow, my team, Deshaun Watson, this Houston Texans team, who has been a pretty damn good franchise for the past few years, were this close from what it seemed to beating the Chiefs. But in all reality, when Mahomes is the quarterback, I don't care if you're up by 30, it's always this close. And for those who are listening, my hands are super wide apart. It is never a close game, or you're never close to winning until the score until you won basically. And then
Yeah.
that's just what Mahomes has proven. So I think huge deal. I think he will live up to it. I don't want to speak on any injuries. I don't want to jinx anybody. He is the Madden cover athlete, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, in 18 or 19, he was.
He was not, yeah. And so he doesn't have the curse, right? He won the Super Bowl.
Or I
And
think
I
it
think
was this
that curse is
past year.
broken.
I think this past
It
year.
was 20.
Yes.
It was
And
2020,
yep,
yes. Because this year is Lamar
Lamar
Jackson, right? This
Jackson. Yep.
upcoming season.
Hmm.
So, and obviously the curse has been broken. Again, I hate thinking about injuries. I really don't want to talk too much on it. I don't want to jinx anybody, but I think Pat Mahomes is going to be, I wouldn't even consider him at his prime yet. He won't be at his prime for maybe another couple of years. He said it himself 2 years ago, not this past season, but the season before. He didn't even know how to
2018.
read a defense. He didn't even know how to read a defense.
He was just out there playing.
Just playing the game he loves to play with that raw talent, and it's nuts. It's nuts to me.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just glad he's not in the NFC, so at least our teams will have a chance to at least make the Super Bowl every year. Football's a weird game where, like, it's kind of somewhat towards the baseball level where if you do have, you could have a really good team on paper, but you just don't finish well throughout the year. Super Bowl hangovers very real for teams. You don't really see teams go back to back unless you're the Bills. Shout out to the Bills losing four in a
Yeah.
row or whatever. But Pat Mahomes, he is the quarterback, of course, and that's the most valuable position in football. If you have one, you're in contention every year. We see that with Tom Brady. So yeah, shout out to the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes for getting this done. I thought they were just going to give him like a 5-year extension and work from there, but they're in for the long term. And fun fact, there's only been 4 10-year contracts given in NFL history. The first one, 10-year or longer. The first one, Donovan McNabb.
Ooh,
We all know
with
what happened
Philly.
with him. Yep.
Oh man, oh man.
He didn't even like end up playing there the rest of the career. He went to the Vikings and then he went to the Redskins, I think, or it was flipped.
He moved around. He just there was a switch that flipped. You know how it is. These guys get their contracts and all of a sudden they forget how to play. Seen it.
The second one, Drew Bledsoe. When did he sign that? Like the year before Tom Brady was there.
Oh no.
So Drew Bledsoe signed like a 10-year deal. Tom Brady came in, took that job. The next one is Brett Favre, which he had like a lifetime contract or whatever. And I think he ended up, I don't know how many years he actually played of that 10-year contract. We all know he was there forever. Then he retired, went to the Vikings, and then he went to the Jets. Or his reverse. I
And
can't.
then ultimately,
Yeah. And then
yeah,
he retired.
he
And,
retired a few times.
and then the final one, Michael Vick. He signed it like 2 years before he went to jail. So
Oh,
the one that really
Michael.
really didn't pan out was probably uh Donovan McNabb. All the other ones were kind of like unfortunate events that happened.
Yeah, with Favre, he retired a few times. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers came along. I'm curious to know what year he signed that. McNabb was McNabb played in a Super Bowl against the Patriots,
Yeah.
and it was a game that it was a close game. T.O. played
Yeah.
Terrell Owens played with a broken leg or a
Yeah.
broken ankle. Had the game of his life. Still should have been a first ballot Hall of Fame. I'll argue that forever. Um, And that was like I'm pretty sure they had Brian Westbrook at running back at the time. They had like a very good team. And then, like you said, out of nowhere, McNabb just went south. That organization kind of went south a little bit before picking it back up a few
Mhm.
years after he left. And he was just never the same at that point.
All right, so I have the deals. So McNabb signed it in 2002, 12-year deal, $115 million. Brett Favre, it was termed a lifetime contract because he was already pretty old at that point. 2001, signed a 10-year, $100 million contract. Drew Bledsoe, 10-year, $103 million contract with the Patriots in 2001. I think that was the year the Patriots.
That was the year. That was the year Tom Brady took over. Wasn't that the same year that they played Oakland in the snow? And the tuck rule happened? Wasn't that Tom Brady's first
Maybe.
year?
Maybe.
That might have been. Either way, that's tough. And that's why it's like, well, paying somebody 500 mil or I mean, I get it. 160 or whatever, 142 is guaranteed to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a lot, but it kind of is, right? Like that's still
Yeah.
142 million off the books.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you got to weigh his talent. And I mean, I would say I put Mahomes above all of those guys as far as talent goes. Brett Favre was great. Mike Vick was incredible. Mike Vick he made some poor
Yeah.
decisions, but by far better than a Bledsoe who was actually pretty good at the time, and McNabb who was okay at the time. I guess he wasn't bad, but 500 mil. And again, that's the time frame too. That was also
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Michael Vick, 10 years, 130 million on Christmas Eve 2004. And there's actually a fifth one. I thought there was only four. Fifth one, Dante Culpepper, 10 years, 102 million, included 16 million in guarantees with the Vikings for the 2003 season. A lot of these right at the beginning of the 2000s had infatuation with signing 10-year contract quarterback. I, I
That
I don't think
was
these
it.
guys back at that time were like at the level Mahomes was.
Well, Culpepper, and I was gonna mention Culpepper too, because he ended up falling off extremely hard out of
Hmm.
nowhere. He had talent. That Vikings team was talented. It's just the Packers have always had a great organization as far as they'll somehow grab a running back who's good for 2 to 3 years. And they've always had Brett Favre, they've always had Rodgers. But that Vikings team had Moss, they had Chris Carter.
Yeah.
Dante Culpepper was great. I don't know if he's worth a 10-year deal, but I can guarantee you that collectively, all of these guys in the early 2000s ruined it for every quarterback going forward because we haven't seen it since until now.
Yeah. Organizations were probably a little hesitant, which
It's like, yeah,
it's like I didn't even realize you could sign a 10-year contract. Like in hockey, you normally see like 10, 12-year deals. You remember Hossa signed a 12-year deal a long time ago. In baseball, you see 10-year deals like nothing when guys hit free agents. Basketball, it's like 4 years at the max. I think it's 4 years if you like re-sign with your team, and it's like 3 years if you sign with like a different team.
I think you might be right. It might be 5 and 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think if you are re-signing with the team, yeah, because I think that's LeBron, I think, signed a 4 with the Lakers, 4 for
Okay.
like 160 something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, 4 and 5, because so it's a max, and then you get super max when you're continuing with the same
Yeah.
team. I think that's like the perk. Which I mean, at this rate, what does a super max really do for a lot of teams? I mean, for a lot of players, I mean, I guess it does help. But yeah, 10-year contracts, baseball is, I thought, the only sport, and hockey.
Yeah.
Football, we don't see it. Receivers and running, football is such a tough sport. It's the toughest sport as far as wear and tear, hits to the head, ACLs. Some it could be the wrong, tackle or whatever it may be, whatever the play may be. You see guys like Johnny Knox. I hate to bring it up, but that guy was so promising and it was huge in Chicago. And on a kickoff, a fumble ends his career.
Yeah.
And that's why, running backs don't last long. You might get 5 or 6 maybe great years out of a running back, and then all of a sudden, it's a downward slope. DeMarco Murray, who ended up being a tank throughout the rest of his career, he declined eventually. He only had a few years in Dallas. I think like LaDainian Tomlinson might be one of the backs that lasted a little bit longer than the average, and
Sean
Adrian Peterson.
Alexander.
Sean Alexander was great. Sean
And
Alexander was great.
he fell off really quick.
And he fell off, yeah. Ray Lewis, or not Ray Lewis, Jamal Lewis with the Ravens, who I'm pretty sure set the rushing record up until I think Chris Johnson may have broken it at some point for the AFC. But he had like 2,100 yards, and then Amon Green that same year had 1,800 yards for the Packers. Both those guys, like 3 years later, were gone. Disappear act. They really weren't anything. And so that's why it's hard to it's a tough pill to swallow, I'm sure, as an organization, to say we're gonna give you 10-year contract and this much money. But at the same time, it's like, well, it's Pat Mahomes. Why not? But I
Yeah.
guarantee you, if it doesn't work out, we'll never see it again. We will never see that again.
Yeah, that is wild. I saw well, I was looking up NBA contract. I think Magic Johnson signed like a 10-year, $25 million deal. Kobe signed a 7-year deal back in 2004. I think that's like the longest, most recent. Got 7 years, 130. Massive. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes, the $500 million man.
500, man. I'll take a percent of that, please. It's all right. Pretty soon, we're going to sign our $500 million contract for our podcast, and then we're going to branch off from there. Don't worry. We're coming for you,
Oh,
Pat Mahomes.
oh yeah, yeah, totally. Was there any other
So
signings in football this week? I think
in
so.
football, no. Last week, we talked about Cam Newton, obviously. We saw, I'm sure you follow him on social media, Twitter. He was all over Twitter and Instagram. He's hungry.
Yeah.
We'll save this for another day, but I am looking forward to this Patriots season. Not because I hate on Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady, but there is change in New England, and Cam Newton got the exact opposite of Pat Mahomes, and he damn near has, I don't want to say he's anywhere near Pat Mahomes talent-wise. He's not. Nobody is. But damn, I'll be damned if he isn't better than the 1 million or whatever he's going to get.
Oh yeah.
7 mil if he's lucky. If he's lucky. So I'm looking forward to it. Cam Newton looks hungry, and I'm on board with the wave. I'm on board with that. But that's it for the NFL.
Yeah. NBA news, there is Jamal Crawford signed with the Nets. We all know the Nets, like, they're going to have a brand new team going into quarantine or like the restart. Dwight Howard announced that he is going to play according to the team this week. I think Joakim Noah a couple weeks ago, he signed with the Clippers for the remainder of the year. Luke Mbah Mute is signed with the Rockets. We're seeing a lot of old veterans being signed to teams as fill-ins at this point. I'm glad that they're allowing some of these guys to get signed. I think before you were only allowed to be signed if like you played during this year or something, and they changed it to like
Yes.
if you've played in the NBA, just in general.
Which is good. I mean, there's a lot of guys I'm sure who are not going to play. We saw players who are going to back out because the health concerns, which is major, right? That's huge,
Yeah.
right? There's COVID, there's a pandemic. Being with their families. I think Gordon Hayward, if I could be wrong, There's a player who is going to get the pass, and this is like one of the only reasons because they're expecting the birth of a child.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Gordon Hayward. I could be wrong, but so they are allowing. They're somewhat lenient
Yeah.
as far as okay, this is a family emergency. You can go. I'm sure it's do your thing, come back whenever you're ready, quarantine for 2 weeks, get tested. Probably got to pass like 3 tests, maybe two, and then you can play.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. I can tell you what the league is not lenient on the amazing food that they have been fed so far. Healy, you pointed out to me earlier. Wow.
Yeah.
It looks
Airplane
like
food.
airplane food. Yeah.
That social media is clowning the food that these guys are getting at the moment. I don't think it's bad food. If you look at it and what they are getting, I don't think it's bad. It's just strictly the presentation for what these guys are as like athletes. It looks like they're
Yeah.
getting handed food on like these trays. They're all like bagged and stuff, and it just looks bad. I don't think it's necessarily as bad, but yeah, social media was going in clowning these guys like this is all you guys get for quarantine. Pretty wild.
As an athlete with how much they run, based on the serving, because as you mentioned, it doesn't look like a lot. They put diced onions and all type of toppings and sides in their own little container. I wouldn't be surprised if they're seeing 6 of these a day.
Yeah.
Because with how much fuel they're burning off
Yeah.
and they're working out,
Hmm.
like how else I mean, I'm sure the food is extremely healthy. I'm sure it tastes great. I just thought it was hilarious that you pointed it out that Twitter world is blowing up because of it. And I just had to point that out because I mean, you would think these guys are going to be getting fed like the best of the best.
Hmm.
Whatever they want, right? Sushi or whatever, the best steaks.
Yep.
And you look at it and you're like, "Oh, that was $8 at the nearest stop and go before you enter the terminal to get on your plane."
It
So,
stopped at the local
but
college,
yeah, literally, right?
the food court.
So, besides that, it is temporary, right?
Yeah.
So it, it's temporary. So they're going through what seems to be a quarantine phase.
Yep.
Once the quarantine phase is lifted, then they're going to have multiple chefs available. And this is just for safety purposes. I mean, it's simple as that. Every major league sport, every company in the world right now, we as humans in this
Hmm.
society, especially in America where the numbers aren't too hot, taking precaution. So this is going to be they're confined in their rooms for the first 36 hours. I don't know if that is the quarantine period, if it's the 36 hours or if it's going to be longer than that. But until then, they are stuck eating whatever food you want to call this.
Yeah, we should see updates once after a couple days. Guys are eating. Hopefully they post up. Otherwise, people are just gonna think 100 calories a day while burning like 8,000. But
Exactly. Yeah, they're constantly running and working out, but I just thought that was kind of funny. As far as other NBA news, I don't really think they're. I think we're just waiting. The full schedule released, or am I wrong?
yeah, I
I know
think
we
we
saw
talked
a
about
yeah, we talked about the schedule last week. Opening day, we got Lakers and Clippers. That for me is the biggest matchup right there. Every game is gonna feel like a playoff game. It's 8 games. Um, I'm interested to see Pelicans. I'm interested to see the Grizzlies. Whoever makes it, I'm kind of pulling for Zion and that Pelicans team, considering they were a package deal for AD. They were just packaged up and just shipped UPS ground. They were thrown across the warehouse, and in the back of the truck there was no safety. The box was broken, and guess what? They look nice. They look nice. Zion
hmm
looks great. And obviously they're gonna battle it out for that eighth seed against the Grizzlies. Grizzlies have a tougher schedule. They currently have the eighth seed. I love John Morant. John Morant's the rookie of the year. Uh, Obviously for different reasons. Zion didn't play, but I also love Jaren Jackson, and I think those two alone will be the duo of the future. We will see what that franchise does, but I am looking forward to basketball season. It's right around the corner.
yeah, a couple weeks away. Another sport that's a couple weeks away, 2 weeks to be exact. Baseball. I don't know if you
Baseball.
saw over the weekend, baseball or like teams have been holding inter-squad games. I think the Yankees were on TV, Cubs maybe, but we all know the marquee network is like not even with Comcast or whatever. I don't know what to do with it. But yeah, game or teams have been hosting games with their squad. It's been kind of cool to follow. Scary moment last week. Giancarlo Stanton hit a line drive off Tanaka's head. That was scary to see. Did you hear about that?
I did not hear about that. I'm surprised I didn't see it on the Twitter feed.
It was on Twitter for a little bit, and I think they started removing video. But yeah,
Oh no. Is he
Giancarlo,
okay?
yeah, he went to the hospital and he got released like that day. But yeah, he got
Okay. Okay.
Giancarlo Stanton, the guy who hits the ball very hard, hit it right off Tanaka's head. It was very scary to watch. He's all good now,
That's
which
yeah,
is
that's
good. That is scary, especially your own teammate too. And yeah, that
wow.
we have a couple weeks. What news was I gonna get at? Um, we have had some opt outs. Nick Markakis is opting out for the year. I don't know if there's any. I know Chris Bryant was saying like he was scared going into the year, but these guys are getting tested. They've gotten tested like 3 or 4 times already, and it's looking like the
And then
season will begin. I think.
do we have any updated news on Trout?
Yeah, Trout's gonna play. He's just expecting
Yeah,
in
because I don't.
August.
Yeah, okay. I think that was his biggest thing. Like every other player, it's safety concerns you're expecting. So that's good. Everything's 2 weeks away. We're 2 weeks away from the new norm of
Yeah,
sports. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to fantasy. Fantasy for right now it'll be fantasy football. I are we still gonna do a standing room only podcast fantasy league? I don't know. Like we talked about it briefly.
I think we will eventually. When you wait for
Yeah, we'll put it out on
preseason and
social media.
everything, when you wait for preseason
Yeah,
and stuff to
it'll
start for.
yeah, and I need the COVID numbers to go down a little bit too. They've been pretty high recently, but I have the itch for fantasy. I can tell you that. It's been a long off season. We've had no sports. We pulled through. We've
Yeah,
pulled through and we're right here. We're 2 weeks away. I think we're at the point where there's always going to be news moving forward. Updates, injuries, contracts, $500 million contracts. We probably won't see again for a long time. But I'm glad everything's back. Is there any other news? I think we might have covered everything.
yeah. I think that's it. I
I
don't
think
have
that's
anything.
it for this time. Okay. Well, Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, whether if it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on our YouTube channel. If you want to watch us communicate back and forth, as we are not currently together due to, obviously quarantine and the COVID. I wouldn't call it quarantine anymore, but due to COVID, we are remote. But we do have our YouTube channel. Biggest thing for us is Apple Podcast and Spotify. If you guys do like us, like what you hear, want to show some love, just show any support, just hit the download button. That's how we get our view count. We've been getting quite a bit recently, so I am thankful for everybody that has been tuning in, and expect a lot more interesting podcasts moving forward with sports coming back. Again, we are on social media as well. SR Only Pod, Twitter, Instagram, and you can always follow us on our personal social media accounts. I am on Twitter, Instagram. I am iGoose. That's with 4 O's.
You can
And then we
follow
have Healy.
You can follow me at the Healy6 on Twitter and Instagram.
All right. See you guys next week.